Hey guys, welcome back to another video segment here with the U Tactical Academy Law Enforcement YouTube channel. And I'm Dave Acosta. This is my daughter, Courtney Manwaring. She is actually an active duty police officer here in Utah. So we are going to dive right in and talk in this video about the written exam, right? The written test for the hiring process, you know, with most agencies. Now, there are a lot of variations. When we say written test, it's not one specific test. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to hand it over to Courtney, who, you know, it's only been a few years since you tested. And also, even though it's been 3 years since she tested, and she did test with multiple departments, which she'll talk about, she's helped a lot of colleagues and friends since then as they've gone into the testing process. So she's fairly familiar with what's going on. So that said, Courtney, why don't you talk to, you know, everybody about what they might see? What are 2 or 3 of the most prominent tests that they might see in the hiring process for a police department?
So we've told you guys before, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Test for multiple police departments. By doing that, you guys will see firsthand that every police department is going to test just a little bit different. A lot of times the biggest differences are going to be found within the written exam portion. So we are going to go over two tests that are pretty big, very common tests, and then we're just going to tell you some additional things you may or may not be tested on if the department has decided to make their own test. So the first test that we are going to talk about is the NPOST. This is the National Police Officer Selection Test. So it has 4 different sections, and 25 states in the U.S. use this test for their state. Now, when I say that, when you're testing for different departments, they may or may not require you to have this test done prior to testing. One of the departments I tested for required you send your NPOST scores in with your application to even start the testing process with them. So just make sure you're doing adequate amount of research. I can't harp on that enough. Make sure you do a good amount of research on every department that you're testing for, especially so you know what their written test is going to require or require of you prior to taking it. So let's dive into the NPOST. I have a little cheat sheet behind the camera if you see me looking over there, because I don't want to tell you guys anything wrong. So the NPOST is going to consist of 4 different sections: math/arithmetic, and you're going to have 20 questions in that section, 20 minutes to complete it. Reading comprehension, 25 questions, 25 minutes. Grammar, 20 minutes, 20 questions. And then incident report writing is 15 minutes, and it's 10 questions. So with the NPOST, one of the most important pieces of advice I can give is within each section, they'll have someone telling you how much time you have left. 10 minutes left, 5 minutes left. Within each section, make sure you're doing everything that you know first. So if you get stuck on a problem, just put a little star by it or something, and then while you're within that time period allotment for that section, go back at the end. When she says 5 minutes, use that last 5 minutes to go back and check other answers or work on the questions that you felt like were difficult that you passed and put a little star on. Just because you would hate to spend 10 minutes on one question, and when she says 5 minutes, you have 18 questions left. That would be a nightmare. So just make sure you do everything within the section that you know first, and then go back to the ones that you struggled on. And
now, is the NPOST the test that you said put an answer for every question?
Yeah, so there is no penalty for wrong answers. If I didn't say this before, the NPOST is a multiple choice test, and it's a Scantron. So there's no penalty against you for marking something and getting it wrong. So make sure that you mark everything. If you
don't leave a question blank is the bottom line.
Yeah, worst case scenario, she says time's up and you had 2 questions that you didn't know the answer to. Make sure before she says time's up that you at least guessed, even if you didn't even get to read them. Just don't leave any bubbles undone. So there's just not a reason to leave anything blank. Anyway, just a couple things worth noting though for the NPOST as well. There will be no calculator allowed. That doesn't sound that scary when I say it, but it's scary when you get in there if you haven't if you haven't practiced. A lot of us, it's been a decade since we've done long division, like without a calculator. I mean, we all have freaking phones. We have calculators on us all the time. There's no math that we really do without using our calculator anymore. So there's not going to be a calculator. So make sure that you are brushing up on what you would probably consider to be juvenile math, because you'd be surprised by how much you've forgotten since you were in high school or elementary school. A lot of this math is going to be elementary math. You're just not doing it every day anymore. So we are going to put some links below. Any of the tests that we go over today will have study guide links below the video for you guys to click on and look at the different study guides and different resources that we have to help you guys be successful with each different test.
It's really important to understand, because this is really, to me, this is a golden nugget of information. You know, we think that we're good to go, and then you get in there and you're going to get a problem. It's going to be 9 times 7 times 13. The last thing you want to do is brain fart on 9 times 7. You should just know that, right? But if you haven't done your times tables for a while, or if you haven't done long division, or if you haven't done fractions, brush up on it, because every second counts. Like Courtney said, there's time limits here, and the last thing you want to do is be stuck leaving things blank, especially when it's things that you could fix just by literally going and like she said, I use the term brushing up on some of the fundamentals. So please take that into consideration and don't leave that to chance. Sorry, but that's important.
No, you're fine.
Right.
So like I was just saying, we'll have links below for you guys to go for study guide material. In addition to the NPOST study guide and practice test, which, like I said, there'll be a link down there. They're $5 each, I think. I'm sure they still are. The study guide as well as the practice test. If you're getting them directly from NPOST, I think they're $5 each. We're gonna have some free study guide material links in there as well. But in addition to that, what I also did is 2 nights. $5.
I just loaned you $5. There you go.
There's your
Invest.
study guide. There's your study guide. Anyway, what I did in addition to those study guides and the practice tests, I just went on freaking YouTube and just said multiplication or long division, and I just had someone walk me through doing long division and my times tables and a whole bunch of stuff, so that I made sure that I was prepared when I got in there, so that like Dave's saying, you don't want a really easy, simple math problem to be something you have to think about. You want to be just breezing by those, because there's going to be harder problems. So, awesome. Anyway, that's the NPOST. Let's move on. We are going to move to the Frontline National. And the Frontline National testing is by the National Testing Network, the NTN. And this test, I'm going to read to you about the video-based part, just because they put it in the best words. So there's 3 sections to this test. The first section is video-based human relations and judgment. That's a 90 second. That'd be nice. That would be nice. It's a 90-minute section. And after that, it's going to be reading ability and then report writing. So I'm just going to read to you really quick about the video-based human relations and judgment test, because this is important to know what this will consist of. And the link to where I'm reading from is going to be below, so you guys can get all of the information on each little section of this test. All right. Video-based human relations and judgment test. Frontline National focuses on using a good judgment in enforcement, public relations, and teamwork. It specifically is designed for an entry-level law enforcement officer. Candidates watch a video segment and then choose the best course of action in a multiple-choice format. This test is presented on a video, and the items play without stopping. Candidates have 10 seconds to answer each question. So I just want to reiterate kind of what they're saying right there. They're going to show you, like we said, it lasts 90 minutes, but never stops. So they're going to show you, let's say, a 2-minute long video. A 2-minute long video or scenario. And then as soon as the video finishes, it's going to flash up a question or two questions, like one right after the other. You're only going to have 10 seconds to read that question, recall the video and what happened in the video, and then answer the question. So they want to see your problem solving skills quickly and your judgment skills quickly. Like I said,
and observation too. And observation. Things that you might have missed, like who was wearing a mask. And if you were just focused on the person that was in the video that was animated, and then this happened and then that happened, and you didn't even notice the person that walked by behind him with a mask. You know what I'm saying? So it's and Courtney had said this earlier before we recorded this. It's about just staying calm and trying to see the whole picture, but you certainly want to pay attention and be focused on everything in that video. But don't be distracted by just one thing. Try and capture the whole picture in the video.
This is not a test that you want to zone out in. This actually, one of the agencies I tested for did administer this test. This was the one that they gave for their written portion. It was not a blanket question, so to say, after the scenario video was played. I would not have known the answer to that question if I would not have paid attention to the video. So just make sure that, like Dave's saying, don't overthink it, but focus. Make sure that you're focused, don't get distracted, and you'll be fine. So those are the details on the video-based human relations and judgment portion of that, the 90 minutes. And then after, you'll go to the reading ability and then the report writing. And that is the Frontline National Test. Now, in addition, those are the two big tests that we see are most common. And in addition to the sections and the topics that those tests give, you may be tested on some other things. So let's say that the agency you're testing for requires you to have the NPOST already done before you get there. So you send in your application, you send in your NPOST scores, and then you get there and you're required to take another written test. That written test may consist of things specific to that jurisdiction. This is another personal experience of mine with a different department that I tested for. I had to send in my NPOST with my application, and then when I got there, the second test we took after the physical test was the written test, and that written test was all about that jurisdiction. The population of the jurisdiction, the highest crimes in that jurisdiction, and which is all stuff you can find on the internet. The mayor, the chief's name. So it was stuff like that, and then they also had their own portion of scenarios for me to answer, and then a little report writing section. So no matter what test your agency is going to do, whether it's a national test or whether it's the Frontline, or some agencies have you do the Wonderlic as well, that'll be in addition to maybe their own written test. They will almost all consist of at least the 4 testing topics that the NPOST consisted of: the math and arithmetic, reading comprehension, grammar, and incident report writing. Those 4 will almost always be in your test. It just may or may not be in conjunction with a couple other things. So maybe they'll have you do a map reading section, or they will have you do a reasoning section or observation section, memory. They just might test a couple spatial awareness. Yeah. They might just test a couple other additional things, but 4 that you're going to see in almost every single test are those 4: the math, reading comprehension, grammar, and incident report writing. So just make sure that you're really good, squared away on all of those. And really quick, I did mention the Wonderlic. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, so you guys can hate all you want on how I'm pronouncing that. But that test, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's math, vocabulary, and reasoning. And when I say that right here, it sounds really easy and simple, but that is a pretty difficult test. That's not something that you want to be walking in and taking just to see where you're at, because it's something that requires a decent amount of practice tests, study guides. Make sure that you test for that one. And like I said, that one, most agencies, if they do have that, that doesn't count necessarily as their only writing test. A lot of them will still have their own writing test. So
bottom line is, find out ahead of time what the agency that you're testing for, find out ahead of time what their requirements are when it comes to written tests, One last piece of advice I would tell you: spatial awareness. Go look it up, find out what it is, and study it, because it's something that you could do well in with a little bit of preparation. But if you don't understand what it is and take some practice tests with spatial awareness, you might get caught off guard, and that could be a whole section that you fumble, And so we want you to go in with all of the resources that you can find so you're better prepared to pass. And guys, I just want to say this. You have to understand something. It's not whether you pass or not. That is not where the money is, okay? It's if you pass and you got an 85 and 30 people like Courtney pass and they're in the 90s. That's who they're looking at. They're looking at these scores and they're going, let's interview, because you're going to be ranked. At the end of the day, they're going to combine physical test, physical test, oral board, written. They're going to combine these scores and they're going to rank you. And so, I remember when I tested in Las Vegas, I tested at the 2 biggest departments in Las Vegas. I knew how many people were on the list and tested, and I knew where I ranked, which told me if I proceeded forward, what academy I would be in, if that makes sense. Bottom line is this: you're going to be ranked on your overall combined scores. So it's not just about passing the test, it's about you giving yourself the opportunity to do well and score as high as possible in all of these different testing segments. So that's what we want for you.
Which is why being prepared is the most important thing. For any test that we talk about, whether it is written, oral board, physical, being prepared is of the utmost importance. And there's a term or a phrase in law enforcement that if you are going into law enforcement, you're going to hear multiple times. If you're already in law enforcement, you've heard it 100 times. You don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your training. So, preparation, guys, it's all about preparation. We are going to include a whole bunch of links below for either study guides that cost $5 or something, and free stuff. Just some good resources for you guys to do your own research and dive into the different types of testing and look for some additional details. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and
don't forget,
stand by, because we'll have a whole bunch more videos coming your way.
If you guys like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and at the end here, check out our sponsors that help us out as well. So anyway, once again, thank you guys for watching, and good luck.